Wheel of Genre, the show for readers who are sick of the algorithm. Each week, we spin the wheel and land on a new genre of books. So that's spies, mysteries, horror, romance, SF. It's all on the shelf. And right now, we are reading through every short story in Harlan Ellison's anthology, Dangerous Visions. I'm Zach, and this week, this is a short story that, to me, begs to be compared with other stories that we've read before, other dystopias, and it's hard for me to escape that urge to compare.
I'm Bob. I'm interested in something similar, Zach, because Sladek calls this a horrible utopia. And I'm interested in seeing if we can pick apart if that really is different from a dystopia, or if when one goes about writing this, do they have to think, okay, think about the perfect place and then slowly show people dissolving because of that perfect place. And I think this is great. I think Dangerous Visions is back 100% full, balls to the wall, full speed ahead. I think Sladek is great. I thought this was a lot of fun.
What happened in the story, Bob? If you can remember.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm slowly turning into gobbledygook. So this is a horrible utopia where there are these environmental, what are they called? Therapeutic environment machines or therapeutic environment machines. And so what happens is there are these machines everywhere, and they watch us to the extent that if we hurt ourselves, they rush in, they might knock us out, they give us an inoculation, and then when we wake up, it gives us a brochure to say, look, here's how you don't hurt yourself next time, and please sign on the line to say you really will try harder not to drink pasteurized milk because that will kill you. Then
unpasteurized milk.
Sorry, unpasteurized milk. Thank you. I need a machine. I need a therapeutic environment machine. So these things will do everything for you. And just for example, there's a character who used to love chess, and he would play chess with his friends, all caps. He would play chess, and he was really good at it. And now these therapeutic machines play with him and have just dumbed it down so he wins every time. And he's gotten so stupid by the end of it, he can't even remember what the pawns do. And only 3 years have gone by. So these machines do everything for us, even before we need to start thinking. They adjust to us just like an algorithm, for example, where one character goes to pick up a pail of milk. He's a farmer. He's going to pick up this pail of milk. It used to be gold yesterday, and then the algorithm found out, well, maybe he would be maybe it would make him happier if it was silver. And he picks it up and he thinks, wow, this is much nicer. I love this silver pail. It makes the milk shine more. So everyone in this society, before they even think, these algorithms, these machines have perfected everything for them so they can never be sad. If they do get sad, the machines figure out what drugs to give them and give them a new prescription. I thought this was what science fiction should be. I thought it was so interesting. It feels like golden age science fiction in a way because of the way the characters are talking to each other. It's almost like scenes from The Great Gatsby, where it's just people in a room having a party and talking about what is going on in culture. And that's what's happening in this story too, where everyone's saying, look, I'm tired of this. These machines are making us stupid. We should do something. And then getting distracted and forgetting to do anything about the machines. And I think it satirizes that style, satirizes that golden age science fiction style a little bit, while also creating this horrible utopia.
And I think if I was to give a name to this type of story, it's really a lobster in a pot story, right? What we have is a great concept. We have a great setting. I think the individual characters in this aren't as important. And I think maybe the plot conflict isn't that important because it's just a slow rising of temperature until boil. Right. And what we're presented with here is a bunch of lobsters who don't recognize. Maybe they do recognize, but they're certainly not trying to get out of the pot. You know what I mean? That they're slowly being boiled. There's a kind of inevitability to the ending of it. I want to say a pessimism, but it doesn't feel too, I don't know. It was hard for me to really nail down the exact emotional tone of this story. It was it was more of a curiosity to me than a tragedy, if that makes sense.
I think I would disagree. I would say it's extremely pessimistic, I think. It really thinks about what are we going to come up against, but it does it in a very funny way. So it doesn't feel pessimistic. It's a very funny, clever story, but it's a horrible, horrible utopia we're looking at. Because by the end, these, like you said, the characters, we stay with them, but they're not super important. The characters and the plot are kind of a device for this speculative idea. But there's a great moment when we start to see their speaking totally break down, because they I think their group, one was a psychoanalyst, I think one was a medical doctor, and one was a judge. And then after 3 years with these machines, we get to 1989, and it says, Jimmy had a good idea, but nobody wanted to listen. He remembered once when he was an itsy boy, an egg machine that looked the eggs out of their shells and putted them into plastic things. And then it goes to Helena, and it says, and these are all, adults. Helena had a wooden hammer, and she was driving all the pegs. Bang, bang, bang. 1, 2, 3, she said, bang, a bang, a bang. And they've devolved into that. One character who used to be I think he was the medical doctor. He's trying to play chess, and he can't figure out what to do, so he just starts crying and can't function. I think it's very pessimistic, because it's shown these people who are at the top of culture now have fallen to the very bottom. And I think even at the end, it's kind of unclear what happens, but it looks like Med Central, which is the company that makes these therapeutic environment machines, the therapeutic environment machines, they kill everyone. Is that right? Because it says,
is that what they do?
I
thought they were becoming the muscle men, the people who hooked up to machines with an intravenous thing in them.
Exactly. Well, sorry, I guess they're not killed, yes, but they've become vegetables. It's just like the Matrix, because it says all pertinent data on them were switched over to uterine supply, which clocked them in at 400 hours GMT, day 1, year 1989. Med Central agreed on the time check, then switched itself off. So they've become like these batteries almost in the Matrix, but then Med Central switches itself off. Either it's not going to power their functioning anymore, or it's just like, well, I'm not needed. Now they're just batteries and I'm out. So it's hard to say. Maybe they'll die, maybe not, but it seems like they may as well be dead.
Yeah, I think I got more of the second reading. I think they are being kept alive. I just think that they're just kind of being stored away. It ultimately, what it says is they've achieved a perfect balance between the number of people being born and the number of people dying. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's kind of like the logic of trying to reach that balance taken to an extreme, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. We're just going to keep all these people alive until new people are born. It doesn't matter what their quality of life is like. Or we're going to revalue what it means for quality of life to be avoidance of pain. And the logical extreme of that is laying in a bed all day with an intravenous tube. That is the most absence of pain that you can get. But to a machine calculation, that's top scores and everything. So we'll just keep all those people alive until, new people come in. I do think that of most of the Dangerous Vision stories, this one I think has maybe the most abstract, but also like vaguely pertinent message of any of these stories, which is, okay. So like, let's think about this. I think that what they're giving us is a story where we've moved from the idea that if there is pain or trauma or bad signals, or, if you feel uncomfortable, instead of changing yourself or doing something different to overcome it, you change the environment, or not you change the environment, but the environment changes so that you never, ever feel any kind of discomfort. And I think that what we get from that is that kind of frictionless life ultimately causes your brains to turn into mush peas. And I think that he's really, without ever being explicit, without ever hammering the point home, he's really saying that it's truly the struggle. It's truly the conflicts and the problems that you solve that give life meaning, and also allow you to grow as a person. And when you don't have those things, when it's just a slip and slide through life, what you get is just a reversion back to childhood.
I think, again, when you said, is it pessimistic or is it not? There's another element that makes it a little even more frightening because, yes, okay, we're creating these slip and slides. We're allowing we've created a system where the environment needs to correct things for us. So we are always going down that slip and slide and it just becomes oilier and oilier. So it's smoother and smoother. But he says, too, it's almost inevitable. Because he's referencing civilization and its discontents. And he says that Freud talks about in there, when you create the axe, you've got a tool, and now you will never need to do anything. You've lost the freedom to, what he says, to climb or walk on four limbs. You've also lost the freedom to not use the hand axe. So as you create tools, you lose not only is it more convenient, but now there is no reason ever to do it the old way. You have to do it as the new way. And he says, we have lost the freedom now for us, well, for him writing at the time, to do things without computers. So, and it's no longer, he says, a question of giving them power over us, but of how much power, of what kind, and of how fast we turn it over to them. So he is also cautioning us against using computers too much. But it's also a little bit scary to think, okay, as we create these new tools, there is really no going back because we realize how much benefit or how much convenience we have from these things. You'd be crazy to go back. Do you find any parallels with this story and anything happening in our lives now, or anything about, does it still have a staying power, I guess, in 2025?
So that's the thing. That's really the thing, in that, yes, it does, but I feel like what he's talking about with tools is, to me, a separate point from the world that he's painting. So, like, to give you a good, ripped from the headlines. So everyone has now gotten on board with AI. Governments are investing billions of dollars across the globe to build power centers, data centers, whatever. Everyone is on board with AI. That doesn't mean that life has gotten easier. It means that the scale and scope of conflicts and problems has just raised to a new level, if that makes sense. A new complexity, a new scope. But in doing that, I agree. It's like the axe. We've given up the freedom to not have a world in which AI systems are running most everything, or will run most everything. We've given up that freedom. However, I don't believe that that's the same thing as the sketch I did earlier of, like, we've have an environment that has made it so that we feel no conflict. I think that since the invention of the axe, there's more conflict because we use it to kill each other. You know what I mean? And now we have AI. We're going to continue to use it to kill each other. I'm not seeing the increase of tools creating less of an instance of conflict and problem solving and pain causing environments, if that makes sense. So I guess that's really the point that I see. However, I think that the rise of AI could be seen as kind of like, cable TV on crack, in the sense that, like, you can always just be entertained. Just give me entertainment constantly. Give me something new constantly. So in that sense, I feel like, I don't know. There's just like this endless capacity with tools and tech to create this world, but I don't think that this world is inevitable. Maybe this is what I meant when I said it doesn't feel like this story is pessimistic, because to me, it doesn't feel like this story is saying that it's inevitable that we get here. I think that it's just giving us a glimpse of what a kind of life could be like, but it's not assured or guaranteed. I don't know. What do you think?
So I think one thing from what you're saying is he's kind of conflating two separate ideas, and they seem like they could go hand in hand, and I think they often do in science fiction, but they're not necessarily totally entangled. One is where we develop technology and we can never get rid of it. I mean, it's going to be with us, either the new advanced version or that change in our lives is permanent. We can't go back. So with AI, we're never going to stop using AI, but it doesn't necessarily make our lives so smooth that it becomes just pointless. But we do see these characters, they become obsessed with entertainment, they become obsessed with TV, and the TV gets easier and easier to understand, and it becomes less and less interesting. I think we see that also in Childhood's End, where, the overlords, I think they're first called, but these aliens, they come down and they take away all war, they take away all conflict, and then everyone slowly loses all interest in doing art. I mean, they still, some people pursue art, but it's kind of meaningless in that world where there is no struggle at all. So not necessarily do we become dumber, but maybe we have less meaning. But I was wondering, there are some parallels. For instance, have you seen the new commercial for Amazon's coming out with, it's going to help you get medication? So there's already services that do that, but now it's even easier with Amazon. The new ad is just a guy laying on the floor. He's too sick to go anywhere, so he just FaceTimes the doctor, and then there's an immediate shipment of the pills, and his life is all fine again. And that happens in this story almost exactly. There's also the tendency to the friends in this story. It's kind of unclear what they are, but it's all caps friends, and you can dial friends so people will come over. And it seems like maybe sometimes it's robots coming over, but also it's just other people who are doing nothing and they show up and now they're your friends. But it reminds me a little bit of how people use AI, or how people have been using Google for the last few years. We used to ask each other, how do you do this? Can you help me with this? And now it's kind of irritating if someone asks you, like, how do I do my taxes? Or what should I really do if, my hair is thinning? What do I do? That's always oh God. But anyway, yeah. Now,
or
people
the
just ask you.
The timeless response on like an internet thread where someone says, how do I do this? And the people post a link that says, it's the let me Google that for you website,
No, that's exactly what I mean.
Yeah. It's so snarky and rude, but it's like that is really like it's like kind of the accepted route. Why would you ask someone this when you could just Google it? And it's totally changed the social relations.
Yeah. And it is just weird when you ask people some of these things. And so we can't go back anymore. Now the cultural, the norm is to Google it. And he says that when the machines decide to unplug everybody or just put them up in batteries, he says the last 5 abnormals had been cured and all physical and mental functions reduced to the norm. Earlier you said they're so safe that they can't get hurt, and perhaps the safest route is just to have no threats at all, just to be in kind of a vegetable status. I wonder, are there potentially parallels with things getting easier for us, not necessarily making our lives easier, but these old things getting easier and easier and easier, and things getting dumber and dumber and dumber? Is there any other parallel, I guess, with 2025?
I guess it's really a question of how the individual approaches the world as the world becomes easier and easier, because you could quite easily just do the bare minimum in life. You know what I mean? Like you could spend your free time watching Netflix, or if you have a question, you could have chat, you need to write something, you have chat GPT write it, you can automate more and more things. However, I do think that it does allow, like, these tools also enable people, new tools and new tech also enable greater and greater things for people who are interested in learning them. So yeah, I don't know. It's a conundrum. And I guess I have not seen evidence either way on like people I know becoming more, like in general, becoming more useful or more useless, if that makes sense. I will say from a personal standpoint, when it comes to like learning Chinese, for example, if I'm studying and there's a grammar point or a vocab that I need to learn, in the past I would text my Chinese teacher, and I could tell. I mean, I could never tell, but I kind of got the, there's only so many times you can text someone, when you're not in class. But I can infinitely ask ChatGPT for a quick grammar lesson, or what's the definition of this, or how do I say that? You know what I mean? So there is a sense in which, like, you can learn as much as you have the energy for, with tools, with new tools. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of just ranting and raving over here, but yeah.
Well, I want to let's using that, I want to look more at genre a little bit. But one danger, I think, potentially with AI could be students who are learning how to do things. They don't learn how to do things; they just use it and send in their assignment sometimes. Yeah. So that could be one way that some people use it correctly, some people use it incorrectly. But I think Sladek is really interested in what he says, how we construct our utopia. And this might be how we look at genre, because he says, okay, are we constructing it by asking for the avoidance of pain? Is that our basis? Is that our foundation? Or is it from perfect security from disease or accident or natural disaster? How do we construct a perfect utopia? And I guess the danger with AI or anything that we're creating is if it becomes what he calls a slave of the push button scenario, where it becomes, okay, I don't have to do anything anymore. I just ask AI to do it for me, or I just ask these therapeutic environment machines to do things for me, or they just do them for me automatically. Algorithms do everything for us automatically. All of our feeds are just things that these algorithms have decided we probably would like, so we don't have to go out and search for anything. It's just fed to us in a way. Do you think there is danger in creating a utopia with one particular things in mind? I guess we've read some utopia before, and we thought Sir Thomas More's Utopia, that life seemed kind of boring, but it was kind of, I think the what they really wanted was just order. Their foundation was order, not necessarily stopping disease or stopping pain, but having everything always what you expect would happen will happen. There's no chaos at all. So we've conquered chaos. Do you think other utopias might go into dystopia when they choose the wrong thing? Is there any way to choose the right thing in making a utopia?
The only utopian book that we've read that I think that really does it right, and I guess does it in a way that's so obviously different than this for reasons that will become clear, is Samuel Butler's Erewhon. Part of it is in the details of like, they've changed the culture so that things like gold are now no longer valuable. So like only the beggars wear gold necklaces, but people who are wealthy don't do gold. That's just like minor details. But the biggest detail, which was picked up and fictionalized by Frank Herbert, is the idea that they've gotten rid of all machines. And what you get by doing that is a world in which people are more free to be human, more free to develop themselves as humans. They don't have machines that they're offloading their tasks, their creation, their creativity, or their thinking off to, because those are, properly speaking, the tasks of humanity and not calculators. That's always been one of the books that I've wanted to go back and do a reread of. And I think that doing a reread of that side by side with something like this would be, these kind of techno dystopias would be really, really interesting and fun. What do you have in mind?
So maybe for Butler and for Herbert, if he's echoing Butler with the Butlerian jihad, we lose our humanity. If we create a utopia that is, using machines to take away certain things to make our lives easier, we lose our humanity. I think in The Giver, Lois Lowry, we read that a few years ago, and there's something interesting there where their society is to avoid, everyone gets a job, everyone knows what to do in their life. It's similar where we do take away chaos. It's kind of similar to that Sir Thomas More's Utopia, where now everything is in its right place and everything is good. However, people start to lose perception. They can't see certain colors anymore. They start to lose different feelings. They lose memories. They lose a sense of self that is not totally unified with the sense of their community, which that could sound kind of nice, where I get my community, I fit in, but there's something that loses, something central to us in the giver. I think in this, we lose intelligence because what we asked for was the environment to change around us. So to never have to struggle, everything adapts to us. And in that, we lose our ability to think for ourselves. So I think Sladek is going to be a really important author in this collection, and I would really like to read more of his stuff. I thought the story was great, and I think he's important for New Wave. So I was doing some research about him and his involvement in different magazines, and Michael Moorcock, we definitely need to read some Michael Moorcock, but apparently he took over a magazine in 1964. It's called New World. It's kind of similar to Weird Tales or Fantastic Stories. It was created in 1936, but Michael Moorcock became the editor in 1964 and was one of the first ones to publish Sladek. And Sladek was really interested in science fiction, but also kind of, I guess, a little bit pessimistic about the style of science fiction, just like Harlan Ellison is in Dangerous Visions, which makes so much sense that he's publishing in this as well. But this is his first science fiction story, and he's interested in the new wave and pushing things forward or trying to be totally different. Did you notice anything special about his style, or do you think that he fits this new wave genre?
I thought that he had a very standard style, to be honest with you. Very standard with the authors who are presented in this book. And by that, I mean kind of concept heavy, characters not terribly fleshed out, fleshed out enough. It's part of the concept of the story that the characters aren't going to be too fleshed out because they're actively degenerating. But I thought that his sense of humor and his sense of comedy with this kind of like a twistedness to it, I thought really his writing really fits in with the kind of Harlan Ellison gang. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about the style? Do you agree or?
Yeah, I guess it does have that. Earlier I said it felt a little bit like Golden Age science fiction where everyone's in the room talking. They're, talking over cocktails. They're making little jokes, and then science fiction is happening around them. This, however, it's showing the real dangers of science fiction and doing it in a kind of satirical way where it is poking fun at Golden Age science fiction. But I thought this was interesting. He is not as well known as he should be. He's like a science fiction author's author. So this SF's encyclopedia, John Clute says that Sladek is the most formally inventive, the funniest, and very nearly the most melancholy of modern American sci-fi writers. So he's supposed, he's saying like he's one of the best guys. And some of these books that he's writing just sound absolutely brilliant. I would love to read more of his stuff. The Guardian did his obituary, and here's a few descriptions of his books. One is called TikTok, came out in 1983, and it's he invents these things called Asimov circuits. And these Asimov circuits let the hero murder his way to the top, eventually becoming U.S. vice president using these Asimov circuits. There's another book called The Reproductive System from 1968, and it is basically America becomes overrun with these little tiny gray boxes that eat technology and spawn more boxes. Earlier you said that this story kind of reminds you or makes you think of if you give if these machines know what to do and their modus operandi is just to fix everything for us, what are the results of that? It makes me think of the idea of Clippy, or I guess, the paperclip. If the AI thinks, okay, the best thing to make from all matter is paperclips, I'm going to start doing that, and then starts turning everything into paperclips. This kind of makes me think of the same idea, where this AI, or whatever it's called, the reproductive system, starts making these gray boxes out of everything. So I think Sladek was really, really, and that's 1968, is really at the forefront of some real science fiction. There's real issues with science and technology, and he's already putting it into his science fiction in a really interesting way. Not just, look, I created a ray gun, or look, I created a door that opens by itself. These are really big issues that we have to consider, and he's considering them early in the 60s.
Another author that I would be happy to read next time we hit up the science fiction. We draw from the deep well of science fiction. God, there's so many books. I think that one of the joys of reading an anthology like this is that now, there's a long list of authors who I would like to come back to. More authors in here that I would like to return to than I think is probably feasible to do. But yeah, there's some greats in here.
Zach, I know you're signing off, but one quick little weird fact. In the foreword when Harlan Ellison tells us Sladek's social security number, his railway operator ID, his passport ID, and his European passport number?
Mm-hmm.
I looked up his social security number. It's real. He put all of his real information in there. So dangerous.
Maybe the real dangerous vision of all of this was identity theft.
Yeah.
All right. Well, talk to you later, Bob.
Talk to you later, Zach.